పారిశ్రామికంగా శరవేగంగా ముందుకు సాగుతూ తక్కువ కాలంలోనే తెలంగాణ ప్రగతిశీల రాష్ట్రాల సరసన నిలబడే స్థాయికి చేరిందని ఐటీ పరిశ్రమల శాఖ మంత్రి కె తారక రామారావు అన్నారు. రాష్ట్ర పురోగతి లక్ష్యంగా సీఎం కేసీఆర్ అవలంబిస్తున్న పారిశ్రామిక అనుకూల విధానాలే ఇందుకు కారణమని చెప్పారు. తెలంగాణ పారిశ్రామిక వాణిజ్య మండళ్ల సమాఖ్య FTCCI ఆధ్వర్యంలో వివిధ అంశాల్లో ప్రతిభ కనబర్చిన పరిశ్రమలకు HICCలో ఎక్సలెన్స్ అవార్డులు ప్రదానం చేశారు.
As a state which excels in ease of doing business, but we also need to look at few other facets to continue to remain competitive, to ensure that our industry continues to grow, continues to thrive, and continues to compete the best in the country. Before I respond to that, I would quickly like to take you back to a few years ago, when the state of Telangana was about to be formed in June 2014. I would urge you all to think of the then situation with respect to the industry back in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Back then in 2014, I remember very vividly, the very MSMEs the SMEs that Mr. Bhaskar Reddy had mentioned were having a really tough time in the state of Andhra Pradesh. In fact, there were 3 days of power holidays in a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. The situation was bad. Normally, we see politicians and political parties doing hartals at Indira Park, at Dharna Chowk. But there was a time in 2012 and 13 when the industry itself also had to do a dharna and hartal, demanding that power be given, bijli be given, even if it means, at a higher cost. We are willing to pay, but please provide us quality power, was the demand of the industry. But if you look at it now, I think Telangana is by far the only state in the country which was able to provide you 24 hours of quality power supply even in the peak of summer in the last couple of years, especially even in the middle of the pandemic. More importantly, if you look at it, not only for industry but also for domestic sector, and also free power, 24 hours of free power to the farming sector, that makes Telangana very, very unique and very, very ambitious also, if you ask me, because in per capita consumption of power, we're right up there. Number 1 in the country in terms of per capita consumption of power. So let me also point out to another thing. Back in 2014, I keep saying this, there were lots of doubts, apprehensions कि क्या होगा तेलंगाना में, क्या होगा हैदराबाद में, इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन कैसे आगे बढ़ेगा कि पीछे जाएगा. Will there be flight of capital? A lot of people were hypothesizing कि यहाँ से capital कहीं और चला जाएगा क्योंकि यहाँ बिजली नहीं है और पता नहीं ये government कैसे चलाएंगे, etc., etc. But today I am proud to share with you, happy to share with you. When I hear Mr. Bhaskar Reddy speak, when I hear Mr. Gaura Srinivas speak in such glowing terms about the government, about industries department, only one man needs to be credited for that, and that is our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri KCR Garu. But for his tenacious efforts, but for his resoluteness, but for his ability to keep all of us on the toes, I don't think the state of Telangana would have been taken as seriously as it is. Today, wherever I go in the world, wherever I go in India, जब भी नाम लिया जाता है इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन सेक्टर में कि प्रोग्रेसिव स्टेट्स कहाँ पे है हिंदुस्तान में, तो बहुत गर्व महसूस होती है, बहुत फख्र महसूस होती है इस बात का कि तेलंगाना के गिनती के बगैर टॉप 3, टॉप 5 में कोई लिस्ट ऐसा नहीं है आज हिंदुस्तान में, especially when it comes to ease of doing business, which does not include the state of Telangana. So I think it's a matter of great pride, great happiness and great pleasure for all of us. पहले नाम लिया जाता था कि गुजरात है, महाराष्ट्र है, कर्नाटक है, तमिलनाडु है. These were traditionally considered the manufacturing states, traditionally considered the states which know how to engage with businesses on a world stage and possibly do their best. But today, wherever I go, हम लोग रहे या ना रहे वहाँ पे, हमारे मौजूदगी में नहीं, बल्कि even when we are not around, the state of Telangana is mentioned with respect, it is mentioned with great deal of affection, and we are talked about everywhere in the world. In fact, I keep telling a lot of overseas investors, जब भी हम बाहर जाते हैं, US, UK या कहीं भी दुनिया में, हम बस यही बताते हैं कि आप बहुत ओवर सिंप्लीफाइड कंपैरिजन करते हो. यू ऑलवेज मेक दिस ओवर सिंप्लीफाइड कंपैरिजन ऑफ इंडिया एंड चाइना. लॉट ऑफ ओवरसीज इन्वेस्टर्स डू दैट. लॉट ऑफ पीपल थिंक इंडिया एंड चाइना similar size in terms of population or lot of other similarities as well. So therefore they say कि चाइना में बिजनेस ऐसे होता है तो इंडिया में ऐसे क्यों नहीं होता है. I only tell them one thing. I tell them China is a very homogeneous country, but India is not. India is a very diverse nation. India is a very heterogeneous entity. India is a country where everything changes every 150, 200 kilometers. The language, the dialect, the cuisine, the culture, the eating habits, the way you do business. In fact, I tell lots of these overseas investors that India is more like Europe. It's not a unitary entity like China. It's very diverse. I keep giving the example of Jayesh and myself. I keep telling them कि Jayesh भी Indian है, मैं भी Indian हूँ. But the language Jayesh speaks at home, the native language, versus the language I speak at home, are as different from each other. Hindi and Telugu, possibly as different as English and French. इतना फर्क है. और मैं जब कहता हूँ दुनिया से कि हमारे हिंदुस्तान में 22 ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेजेस हैं और 3